Si deseo sonreír, pienso solamente en ti.
Untuk read the book, start the talk hari ini, kita punya perkongsian daripada Encik Muhammad Haikal bin Mustafa, pensyarah Fakulti Kejuruteraan Kimia, Universiti Teknologi Mara, Kampus Pasir Gudang. Kelayakan akademik beliau ialah Master dalam Kejuruteraan Kimia, Universiti Teknologi Mara pada tahun 2015. Ijazah sarjana muda ujian Kejuruteraan Kimia di Universiti Teknologi Malaysia, UTM 2009. Kan Cik Haikal?
Ya, betul.
Pengalaman bekerja. Okey, sebelum jadi pensyarah, Cik Haikal pernah menjadi jurutera pengeluaran di Poliplastik Asia Pasifik Sdn Bhd. Pernah juga menjadi asisten eksekutif pengeluaran di Intamin Manufacturing Sdn Bhd. Sebelum itu pernah jadi jurutera pengeluaran juga dekat ni lah Poliplastik tu, dengan lagi satu eksekutif perolehan dekat UMW Corporation Sdn Bhd. Okay, untuk hari ini Cik Haikal akan bersama-sama kita dalam sesi resensi buku bersama dalam tajuk The Diary of a Young Girl. Ini buku cerita ni mengisahkan kisah benar, kisah pengalaman yang ditulis dan disampaikan oleh Anne Frank semasa beliau bersembunyi selama 2 tahun bersama keluarganya sewaktu penduduk Nazi Belanda. Keluarga itu pernah ditangkap pada tahun 1944 dan Anne Frank meninggal akibat tifus. Yang ini sejenis penyakit yang Cik Haikal
Ya, betul.
Kem konsentrasi Bergen-Belsen pada tahun 1945. Buku harian itu diambil oleh Gis. Betul saya sebut?
Gis.
Okey, yang memberikannya kepada Anne dan hanya keluarga yang terselamat setelah perang beliau. Buku harian itu telah diterbitkan dalam lebih daripada 60 bahasa. So, jadi hari ini Cik Haikal akan dua bahasa dengan kita lah, bahasa Malaysia dan campur-campur lah.
Campur-campur tak masalah
InsyaAllah tak ada masalah. Okey, dipersilakan Cik Haikal.
Okey, Assalamualaikum. Okey, sebelum saya start saya present dulu sebentar ya. Okey, boleh nampak
Nampak.
Okey, alright. So, Assalamualaikum dan selamat tengah hari. Terima kasih kepada penganjur kerana memberi saya peluang untuk berkongsi ilmu mengenai buku The Diary of a Young Girl. Penulis dia Anne Frank. Okay, untuk event kita which is read the book and start the talk. Okay, so sebelum saya start bagi saya punya pendapat lah dan saya punya berkongsi saya punya pengalaman membaca buku ni, saya nak bagi sedikit background kenapa saya pilih buku ni. Sebab jujurnya lah bila saya fikir balik, agak pelik juga sebab saya seorang lelaki berumur 35 tahun bercerita pasal sebuah diary oleh seorang boleh kata kanak-kanak lah, sebab dia menulis diary ni pada umur 13 tahun dan selama dia itulah seperti yang diberitahu oleh Kak Afzal, selama 2 tahun dia bersembunyi tu dia tulis buku diary ni lah. So dekat sini agak jujurnya lah membuka mata saya jugalah sebab I've never been in a position of a young girl. I never read about a young girl. So walaupun perbezaan she started writing in 1943. So the difference is more or less about 70 years, okay, from the day that I start reading this book lah. So nevertheless, her experience is, I think, is a universal experience, especially for young girl, because during that time she also is under dia baru start dapat period. So macam memang jujur saya beritahu lah, agak awkward juga lah saya baca ni sebab saya seorang lelaki 35 tahun membaca pengalaman seorang kanak-kanak lah, teenager lah, remaja. Okay. Jadi kenapa saya pilih buku ni, sebab pada pendapat saya buku ni boleh memberi kita satu experience during that time, during the occupation of Nazi. Memang the history is memang different from our own history lah, because we in Malaysia, kisah ni berlaku di Belanda, di Holland. So but nevertheless, again, I do believe the story and the diary itself is a universal story that we can learn and practice, because as the proverb ataupun peribahasa, history usually tend to repeat itself. So we must learn from history because we don't want the history to repeat. Okay, so that's the background lah. Okay, apa tu buku The Diary of Young Girl? Basically, is writing from a Dutch language. Okay, originally the diary was written in Dutch. Okay, sebab Anne Frank was living in Holland lah, at that time it's in Amsterdam. So the first edition was published in 1947, titled Het Artois, which dalam bahasa Dutch tu is actually Secret Annex. Secret Annex ni adalah nanti saya tunjuk lah, kalau saya cerita susah sikit apa, sebab dia punya it's not a typical design for Malaysia. Okay. Alright, the diary has been published in more than 70 languages, and it was stated that beside the Bible, this is the highest printed book in the world. Okay, so memang is a universal ataupun is been read by many people. Okay. So before I go to the diary, saya nak bagi sedikit konteks lah, because to help you guys in one way to understand the situation of the diary at the time. So Anneliese Anne Frank was born in German city of Frankfurt on 12 June of 1939. She have a sister called Margaret, which is 3 years of her senior. So beza 3 tahun lah. So at that time, in 1929, unemployment was high and poverty was severe in Germany. It was a period which Adolf Hitler, okay, the lelaki yang di belah kiri itulah, and his party were gaining more and more supporters. Hitler hated the Jews and blamed them for problem in the countries at that time lah. Okay, so if you know a bit of history, in 1929, basically there was like an economy crash. Okay, masa tu ada saham jatuh, they call it the Black Monday, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So masa tu saham jatuh kat US dan seluruh dunia lah affected. And then kalau Jerman tu lagi lah, at that time they still recovering from their loss in World War I. So masa World War I diorang kalah dan diorang kena bayar pampasan kepada negara-negara di sekitar Eropah. So at that time memang negara Jerman tu memang miskin dan unemployment, tak ramai orang bekerja. So at that time Adolf Hitler lah, they take advantage, and then he blame the others. So the others in this case is those people Yahudi lah, the Jews. Okay, so for him is a easy target, because orang Yahudi ni they are minority, and most of them they have business. Okay, so dia cakap lah orang Yahudi ni bersalah sebab menjatuhkan ekonomi Jerman, tidak memberi peluang kepada orang-orang Jerman untuk bekerja, something like that. Okay, so as you can see from the picture, inilah dia punya gerakan-gerakan yang diorang pressure orang Yahudi lah. They harass the companies, the people of the Jews. So starting from 1923, when the Nazi party was established, the people of German of Jews background was being harassed, and that led them to basically emigrate lah. Diorang terpaksa keluar daripada Jerman, and most of them goes to Holland. Sama macam inilah the parent of Anne lah. Okay, so Otto and Edith Frank decided to move to Amsterdam in 1933. Dekat sana Otto founded a company that traded in pectin, a gelling agent for making jam. Before long, Anne felt right at home in Netherlands. She learned the language, met new friends, and went to Dutch school near home. So gambar kat bawah ni adalah bapa dia lah, Otto Frank. Ni kakak dia Margaret. Yang ni adalah Anne. Ni Anne masa kat sekolah dekat Netherlands, kat Amsterdam tu. Alright, so starting in 1939, German start to invade other countries. They started with Poland, and then afterward berlakulah Perang Dunia Kedua. So not long after, on the 10th of May, Nazi invaded Netherlands. By 5 days, the Dutch army surrendered. Okay, slowly but surely, the Nazi introduced more and more laws, regulations that made the life of Jew more difficult. Okay, so as you can see from the picture on the right, cara yang diskriminasi yang berlaku pada orang Yahudi yang paling ketara adalah diorang harus memakai the yellow star, okay, to separate them from normal people, so called normal people dengan orang Yahudi lah. Jadi bila diorang dah pakai tanda apa ni, the Star of David, the yellow one ni, so polis, tentera boleh tahu siapa Yahudi, siapa tak Yahudi. So benda ni memang kalau kita fikir balik, especially bila saya buat kajian lah pasal buku ni, macam for me, kalau kita tengok gambar, sebenarnya orang Yahudi dekat Jerman dengan Holland tu, dengan orang biasa sama je, muka dia orang sama, dia punya kulit sama, and then obviously the language they spoke is the same. There's no difference at all, I think. Cuma diorang perpetuate lah cakap orang Yahudi ni dia macam pendek, hidung besar. Padahal in actuality they are the same people lah actually. So memang menyedihkan, saya jujur dengan korang, dengan anda semua, memang it's a very saddening experience doing this research about this book, because that's the reality lah, the reality that happened in the World War II. The term called is Holocaust. So Holocaust ni adalah satu term di mana about 6 million Jews, 6 million orang Yahudi dibunuh. Tak kisahlah, perempuan, budak-budak, orang tua, all of them were killed during that time. And then this is the Nuremberg Gazette. Okay, the Nuremberg Gazette ni, inilah salah satu lagi undang-undang yang diorang discriminate orang Yahudi. So as you can see from here, basically dia bezakan orang Jerman dengan orang Yahudi lah. So yang belah kiri sekali tu adalah what they call as pure German or pure Aryan race. So dekat sini diorang decide siapa yang boleh kahwin, siapa tak boleh kahwin, macam itulah. So for me, this is the discrimination at the very worst lah. Okay, so what is actually is the diary lah. Okay, so during the Nazi occupation, Anne received a blank diary. The blank diary is the red one here. Okay, sebagai hadiah hari jadi dia for her 30th birthday. So she began to write in 2 days later. So ni adalah buku dia yang original yang telah dijumpai, dan from this book keluarlah buku The Diary of a Young Girl. Sorry. Okay. So on the 5th of July, Anne's older sister Margaret received an official summons to report to a Nazi work camp in Germany. So from kakak dia dapat arahan untuk pergi bekerja dekat, konon-konon bekerja kat a Nazi work camp. So start 6 July, after several days, the next day they went to hiding. So as I mentioned previously, Otto Frank have a company, so he used his company building as a hiding place. Okay, so it's a room of annex. Okay, annex ni saya akan tunjuk kot. Okay, this is the family lah, Otto Frank, Margaret, Anne dengan Edith Frank. Okay, so this is the building. The building is still in Amsterdam, masih lagi ada, tak roboh. Fortunately, it wasn't being blown up by the bombs and it was not vandalized. So the building is still there, and the house at the moment is a museum. So people can come and experience what is actually happened during that 2 years, because they refurbish the house and they recreate again the actual condition during that time. Okay, so this is design. So, I want you guys to understand why I show you this picture. I want you guys to understand. This side is on the on the left side. This is the office building. So semua orang bekerja kat sini, pekerja-pekerja Otto Frank bekerja kat sini, and the bottom side is the warehouse. So the design is memang surat nampak, sebab dekat belakang ni ada satu ruang what they call as annex lah. Annex is a separate building to the main house. In this case, the main house is the office. So they live here for almost 2 years. Okay. So the people that were hiding at that time was the family of Frank, which is Edith Frank, Otto Frank, and Margaret and Anne Frank. And then there's the Van Pels, which is Herman, August, and Peter. And lastly, Fritz Pfeffer, which is the friend of a family. So Herman Van Pels is actually a colleague or a worker of Otto Frank. So diorang bersembunyi lah because senang kata they all are Jews. So they were hiding from the Nazi because the Nazi were searching for them. They basically they want to exterminate the Jews because they see the Jews as the enemy. Okay, so try to put yourself in their shoes. Macam itulah. So this is the helper. The helper is they are all of them are the workers of Mr. Otto. Okay, you got Victor Kugler, Johannes Kleiman, yang selalu tolong diorang ni Mipgis dengan Beb Boskul. Okay, diorang ni function diorang adalah untuk membeli makanan-makanan because the building, the annex is not that big, so they cannot store a lot of food there. So they still have to do delivery lah. They have to buy the food, and these two girls, Mipgis and Beb Boskul, is the main. They are the one that usually buy the food. Okay. Alright, so this is the entrance. Okay, it was covered by this. Cara nak masuk ni dia orang guna ni apa ni almari ni dia orang is the main entrance lah. So if you don't try to search directly, it is very difficult to find. Tapi itulah nak jadikan cerita dapat dijumpai lah. Tapi this is the main entrance, and then from inside it would seem that there's no additional building. So that's why they can survive for almost 2 years. Ni adalah dia orang punya kitchen. On the left, also on the right side is the actual bedroom of Anne when she was living there. Okay, this is as I mentioned lah. The front side is the office, the back one is the where they hide, and the bottom side is the warehouse. Okay, I give you this background because I want you to imagine yourself being in hiding in a small place and surviving for almost 2 years without your handphone. Okay, without your handphone. Okay, because this is in the 1944s. They don't have handphone, they don't have TV, they only have radio, and the radio can only open during the night. Even at that time they have to play it at a very low volume because they don't want to let anyone know that they are hiding. Okay, so this is a typical day in the annex. So they start to wake up on 6:45. So 8:30 is what they call a risky half hour because at that time the worker is coming to the warehouse at the bottom level. So to prevent any kind of noise, they have to wear socks, and they cannot speak lah. They cannot talk. They cannot even make excessive movement because they worried the floor will crack, something like that. And then after the worker have come in, they are doing the breakfast. And around 1:15 is their lunch. 4 p.m. they have afternoon coffee break and dinner preparation. And the 5:30 the workers went home. After that is what they call as normal activity because at that time they can come out from their annex, go to the front office and do some basically move along lah, move their body lah, and then try to be normal. Around 7 p.m. they have their dinner, and 9 p.m. they prepare to sleep. And this is a routine for them because they don't have any option. So again, with the small quarters like that, and then there's 8 people in there, and imagine again, for you to have, maybe it's quite difficult, but 13 years old living with older people. Okay, so it's very hard for her because in her diary she always talk about her difficulties. So and she mentioned that Sunday is the most miserable day because there's no I wonder this is her statement. I wander from one room to the next, down the stair and back up again, and feel like a songbird that has had its wings torn off and flies against the bars of his cage in total darkness. So dia bayangkan diri sebagai seekor burung lah. Because you have to imagine that during Sunday, people are not working and then people are enjoying their life outside. So she feel like she cannot come out from her cage lah, because dia hanya boleh dengar orang bergembira, orang bergurau, gelak-gelak. So she struggle a lot lah. Okay, outside fresh air and laughter. A voice inside me screamed. I didn't even try to answer anymore. I lie down on the divan and sleep in order to shorten the time. The silence, the terrible fear too, because there is no question of killing them. So that's her struggle. Okay. Alright. So what is actually the diary? So the diary is actually her, basically her diary lah. Okay, dia bercerita pasal dia punya day to day. Not she didn't put daily occurrence. It's not like a typical diary. She will write when she feel like it but she try to do her best, because it's not like zaman sekarang. She have to do a lot of chores. She kena bersihkan bilik dia, kena buat basuh, kena sediakan makanan, kena peel the vegetable, dia kena basuh baju by hand. So she really was busy at that time. And also one of the most remarkable thing about the family lah, even though they are hiding, it's not that just they are staying doing nothing. They are actually studying. Anne Frank studied French, German, English, and then she was trying to get a certificate to become a stenographer. Stenographer ni orang yang type yang basically she want to be a writer lah. So she did all of that despite being surrounded by Nazi, and as the time passed by, the food quality become scarce, become dwindle lah, because masa tu the Allied force were surrounding and fighting the Germans, so makanan makin kurang. So nevertheless, with all these challenges, and she also have to manage her own self, because as I mentioned previously, she was changing from a kid to a teenager, from a child to a teenager, undergoing her period and everything. So her emotion wasn't that stable at the time, and she is quite close to her father, not to her mom, not her mother. Alright, so in the journal and later notebook, Anne recounted the day-to-day life within the annex, the close quarter, the spare supplies led to various arguments among the inhabitant, and the outgoing Anne come to find the conditions stifling. So when I was reading the book, it really gave me a lot of insight, because Alhamdulillah, I have a daughter. So I do believe that this will help me when my daughter become at this age. So this is a benefit also lah. And I do believe that her story is a universal story that can be used as a guide for us, especially for a young father lah. Okay. So as I mentioned, her close relationship with her father, lack of daughterly love, and she did not like the others much initially, particularly Augusta Van Pels and Fritz Pfeiffer. She was first unimpressed by the quiet Peter. Peter ni is in that hiding tu, there's 3 teenagers, Anne Frank, Margaret dengan Peter. So Peter ni he about 2 years or 3 years difference of age with older lah than Anne. So as time passed by, she started to have conversation with Peter and become close. And she discussed also her hope for future, which include become journalist or writer. And then during 1944, early 1944, the Queen of Holland at the time, which is Queen Wilhelmina, she gave, as you can see the picture here, she gave a speech saying that her citizens should leave journals, documents for future reference. So from that point, Anne Frank started to change her diary to become a sort of novel. Okay, so and actually her diary has a 2-set version. The first version, the historian have never been found. So the second version is the one that she changed a bit, because as time passed by, she become more mature, and she reflect back that a lot of her initial writing was quite immature. For example, talking about feeling um, falling in love. So for her, that's and being harsh to her mother. So she changed a bit. So she called her diary Kitty. Okay, so when she write, she will say, "Dear Kitty, so today I got this. It's like she's talking to a person." And to make sure that because she was planning to use that diary as a book, so a lot of the name there she changed. For example, Fitz Pfeiffer she called Dussel, okay, and then the Van Pels they call the Van Dan. So that's why she changed a lot of the names lah. Okay, so her last entry was on August the 1st, 1994. And at that time, it was reported on the 4th of August, they were discovered and they were taken to the concentration camp. To this day, no reason was known for the police raid. Okay, so there's no concrete evidence who basically either betrayed them or is it was a pure luck that the police found them. So there's no official reason. But nevertheless, they were discovered and they was taken to the concentration camp. So initially they were sent to Auschwitz. So Auschwitz is a very famous concentration camp. About 1.1 million people died there. Okay, so they were sent using these carts or cattle carts. Actually, this is for cow. The cattle car is actually for animals. But at that time, because the Germans see the Jews nothing more than, I mean, maybe lower than animals, because in the cow is being properly transferred, but for human they pack it like a sardine, regardless of their age, either it's an old man, children, everyone is being packed there. Okay. So in Auschwitz, this is one of the most chilling image. Okay, because this is shoes. This is about 100,000 shoes that were found during the liberation of the Auschwitz concentration camp. So imagine, if you have read some history, the most common way they kill the Jews is by using gas. So before those people goes into the gas chamber, they were requested to take off their shoes, their clothes, and any other valuables. And then they were basically gassed, and then the body sometimes being buried, sometimes being burned. But in the later stage, they start burning the bodies because they don't have the manpower to bury the corpse. So it's actually it's a very traumatic for me, because Alhamdulillah, we in Malaysia, we have experienced a lot of peace. Kita memang merdeka dengan cara yang we gain our independence, even though there's a lot of struggle, but mostly by pen. Dengan jasa Tunku Abdul Rahman, he went back and forth to England to gain our independence. So we obviously we suffer, but not to this scale. Malaysia never suffer to this scale. We have our troubles, like for example the communist threat and everything, but never to this scale. Imagine 1.1 million died from this camp. Okay, so it was reported that after Anne Frank was sent to Auschwitz, and after that she was sent to another camp, Bergen-Belsen, which is in Germany, with her sister Margaret. So at Bergen-Belsen, as you can see from the image on the right, the concentration camp is horrendous. There's no type of hygiene at all. And she contracted typhus. Typhus is basically yang kita inilah serangga sebenarnya, actually serangga je, tapi because the hygiene was very bad, there's no kind of shower, tak ada sabun, so benda yang preventable was not prevented. And then she died in 1945. Mula-mula Margaret dulu, and then Ang. So it's a very tragic story lah from her story here. So obviously the story about the travel is not being reported in the diary, because as I mentioned, the diary The last entry was 1st of August. Okay, so she survived another maybe another 6 months before her end. So when the police have round up and taken those people in hiding, Mipgis, she come back to the annex and then she found the diary. So she kept her diary because she believed that she believed Anne will come back. So her initial idea was when Anne come back from the concentration camp, she will just pass back. Unfortunately, Anne passed away, and then among those 8 people that were taken, only one person survived, which is Otto Frank, and he survived because of the liberation by the Soviet army. So when he survived, he went back to Amsterdam, searching for her daughter, for her wife, for his wife. But it's a sad story lah. And luckily, Mipgis, she kept the diary and passed back to Otto. Initially, Otto thought not to release this story because it was too painful for him. Too painful. Imagine your daughter, your wife, not only pass away, but pass away in a very tragic and very horrifying condition. So actually, during my research, actually, Otto want to do a suicide. He doesn't want to live anymore because there's no point of living for him at that time, because his family have gone and he want to join back with his family. But when he start reading her daughter diary, she sees a ray of hope, ada harapan lah, because in her diary, Anne was very how to say, she's optimistic. She can see a small ray of hope, a small ray of hope, even in that condition. So for him, at that time, they want to rebuild the destroyed Europe, right? The Holland, and then she believed that this also the will of Anne. She want to live after she died, in a sense like that. So that's why Otto proceed with publishing the book, the diary, and with the purpose of not to repeat, so future generation not to repeat the same mistake. In conclusion, Anne, she did not survive. However, the diary and the memories live on forever. Her story continues a strong reminder the horrors of war for future generation. Her father, Otto Frank, believed that the readers would become aware of the dangers, discrimination, racism, and hatred of Jews. Okay, so this is one of her quotes that led up to Otto to proceed publishing the book lah. No one who doesn't write can know how fine it is. And if I don't have the talent to write for newspaper or books, well, then I can always go on writing for myself. So this is why Otto Frank proceed publishing the book, because this is the only thing that he have of her daughter. Quite sad actually. Even for me, let me be frank lah. I know this is not common, especially for a Malay guy. I have another bucket list. I add on to my bucket list lah. Sebelum saya mati lah, sebenarnya kata, saya nak pergi ke rumah Anne Frank tu. It's still there. It's a museum, and I want to visit that place because I'm really touched about this book. Sampai sekarang pun saya masih fikir lagi about her story ni. So I implore you guys, if you have just go to Popular kat Harris, saya beli ni kat Harris kat Ian Sebrau. Quite cheap lah, RM17. Okay, lesson to learn. Ni yang just a simple share lah, because from the diary itself, from the book, saya quote lah, it's difficult in time like this, ideals, dream and cherished hope rise within us, only to be crushed by grim reality. It's a wonder I haven't abandoned all my ideas. They seem to be absurd and practical. Yet I cling to them because I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are truly good at heart and frank. So kalau saya nak, because when I was doing this slide, I was thinking, what should I share to the audience, especially because my position as a lecturer, I'm dealing with a lot of my student. Some of them, they just finish their SPM and continue their diploma, so they're still young adults. So if I can share to my student is they must have this perseverance. If imagine if a person if Anne Frank can have this positive attitude, even though being surrounded by Nazi bombing every night, and then with at one point they're just eating soup, they don't have anything to eat, they're just eating soup just to pass the hunger. So but she still continue her study, she still learn uh, English, German language, French language. So even at that condition, she never give up. So if I can share a little bit knowledge about this book to my students, obviously about this quote, which is never give up, even though in this kind of condition. And last but not least, the big pengajaran lah, the big lesson. This is from the khutbah terakhir daripada Rasulullah SAW. All mankind is from Adam and Eve, and Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor a non-Arab has any superiority over an Arab. Also, a white has no superiority over a black, nor a black has any superiority over white, except by piety and good action. Okay, so as a Muslim, we must believe that everyone is equal in the eye of God. It's just that whether we do good deeds and our iman that differentiate us. So I hope we can learn from this book and pass it to our children, to our friends, to our students, especially our students, because just to share a bit, maybe at the moment, I think everyone noticed the current climate in Malaysia is quite it's not a good lah. Okay, we have incident after incident, people being angry to each other. So hopefully, especially in Ramadan, we can do a reflection and be a better person. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Terima kasih Cik Haikal di atas perkongsian buku tadi. Jadinya kalau kita sama-sama dengarkan dari perkongsian buku tadi, banyak juga benda baik yang kita boleh kaitkan dengan keadaan COVID kita sekarang. Satunya ialah bayangkan kita kena PKP tahun lepas, tak silap saya 2 minggu yang ketat tak boleh keluar. Ramai juga yang mental.
Betul.
Nampak si Anne ni dia lagi bertahun. Dia
betul.
hadap dia punya keadaan begitu selama 2 tahun untuk nak survive hidup dia. Jadi apa pun yang terjadi sebenarnya, kita kena pusingkan segala benda yang terjadi pada kita ialah positif. Kita kena sentiasa syukur dengan apa yang Allah bagi. Dalam pada ujian tu sebenarnya ada kebaikan dia. Tinggal lagi kalau kita mindset kita positif, semua benda akan jadi positif. Dan mungkin kita boleh bertahan lama, insya-Allah. Tapi apa pun Allah, betul. Dan lagi satu yang saya dapat kesimpulannya ialah sekarang memang zaman gadget, tak dinafikan. Anak-anak, tak payah anak-anak lah, kita dah malas nak menulis sebenarnya, tapi diary itu ialah sebenarnya bukti hidup kita, kisah benar kita yang kita boleh share dekat orang. Pengalaman kita yang manis ke, yang pahit ke, sebenarnya kalau kita buat dalam bentuk tulisan, dibukukan, mungkin boleh jadi panduan di masa hadapan. Tak payah untuk orang lain, mungkin untuk diri kita, untuk keluarga kita je, tak payah fikir untuk orang lain. InsyaAllah kalau benda tu elok, orang lain akan kongsilah juga, betul tak? Apa yang datanya elok akan jadi elok, apa yang datanya negatif akan jadi negatif lah sampai kesudahnya. Betul? Memang sangat kalau kita baca buku-buku yang tulisan benda yang betul, maksudnya daripada sejarah kehidupan, banyak yang kita bersyukur aku sekarang begini, bersyukur aku di situ. Bayangkan kalau kita duduk kat camp pelarian yang di tempat tu yang berkumpul, lepas tu banyak penyakit, banyak wabak, tak sampai lama lah agaknya, confirm. Kita tak lama tu.
Betul
Satu
juga, betul.
kita dapat tu. Yang satu mental lagi, mental 2 minggu hari tu je pun dah ramai yang terganggu, banyak lebih mengeluh daripada bersyukur kan. Rasa berdebar. Diorang hanya
Itulah saya sekali lagi saya nak ucap terima kasih lah pada penganjur. Bila beri peluang macam ni, saya pun tak semata-mata baca buku ni. Bila saya dah baca buku ni, saya baca banyak lagi information dah sebab saya nak faham keadaan situasi macam tu kan.
ya
So,
betul.
cuma itulah buku ni famous sebab mungkin sebab Perang Dunia Kedua, dan buku ni ada buku, maksudnya ada orang tulis diary macam ni. Mungkin dekat Malaysia pun ada kes-kes macam ni, mungkin walaupun tak seteruk ni, tapi
Tak
macam
bertulis
kalau cakap lah, benda ni kena ada orang tulis. Kalau kita tak tulis, susah kita nak belajar.
Betul lah, benda tak bertulis. Sebenarnya kalau benda bertulis memang boleh jadi sejarah. Kalau kita baca buku, okey, kita baca buku novel cinta je kita dah hayal jauh-jauh. Lagi kita baca buku sejarah. So benda tu macam dia bukan tengok kau ialah grade apa, baca buku tahap apa. Tak. Dia macam kalau kita suka baca, kita baca buku-buku yang ada faedah pun baik.
Betul.
Buku-buku Rasulullah, baiklah benda-benda yang kita boleh agungkan untuk panduan hidup. Seronok tau. Betul tak kan?
Betul. Kalau saya open lah, kalau siapa-siapa nak bertanya ke, saya open lah.
Kak Ika, saya nak tanya.
Ya Kak?
Tadi ada mention pasal Otto kan?
Pasal apa Kak?
Otto Frank kan?
Ya, Otto Frank.
And then Haikal ada mention pasal N pun sebenarnya tak berapa rapat dengan mak dia, betul?
Betul.
So, mak dia di mana masa ni? Masa Otto jumpa nota ni?
Okay, initially when diorang kena tangkap tu, diorang dihantar ke kamp pelarian. Dekat kamp pelarian Auschwitz tu, diorang dipisahkan lelaki dan perempuan. So masa tu Otto dengan belah lelaki, diorang bertiga anak beranak satu kemah sama lah. And then masa tu macam ni, diorang minta sebab Margot dengan Anne Frank kan sebab muda. So diorang suruh pergi ke Bergen-Belsen untuk jadi buruh kerja lah. Sebab dia orang muda. So mak dia ni tak dapat ikut. So bila diorang dua ni dah pergi ke Bergen-Belsen, mak dia lepas seminggu gitu dia patah hati. Lepas tu dia mati sebab kesedihan dan kepenatan.
Jauh dari keluarga
Dia tak boleh bayangkan lah macam mana anak dia survive. So dia dah patah hati, dia macam terlalu sedih. Dia tak ada semangat untuk hidup. Itu yang reported by those people yang survive Auschwitz tu lah. Sama juga dekat Bergen-Belsen. Ada orang yang survive, dia cerita dia jumpa Anne Frank. Anne Frank tu mula-mula dia semangat sebab karakter dia ni happy go lucky. So dekat Bergen-Belsen tu dia semangat, dia selalu cuba bergurau dengan orang-orang situ, naikkan semangat. Cuma dia patah semangat bila dia tengok budak-budak kena masuk ke gas chamber untuk dibunuh lah. Lepas tu dia memang breakdown lah.
Yalah kan, dia bayangkan anak dia lah tu.
Itulah, memang menakutkan lah. Cuma tu lah bila saya Alhamdulillah ada rezeki, saya punya adik ipar saya orang Jerman.
Oh ya?
Ya, adik ipar saya orang Jerman. Lepas tu hari tu saya borak dengan dia lah pasal kenapa Jerman macam ni kan. So dia pun cakap memang sebab generasi dia orang dah ada generasi yang ketiga yang hadapi ni masa zaman datuk dia dengan nenek dia lah. And then memang orang Jerman tak bercerita. Diorang tak bercerita. Orang-orang yang generasi Perang Dunia kedua tu tak pernah bercerita. It's a shame. Dia adalah satu benda yang memalukan bagi diorang.
Ataupun dia orang masih terkesan lagi sebenarnya?
Masih terkesan.
Masih lagi terkesan lagi.
Sebab memang terlalu, kalau kita fikir balik, gila jugalah macam mana diorang layan manusia. Padahal macam saya cakap tadi lah, orang Yahudi dengan orang Jerman masa tu sama je. Muka sama, kulit sama, bahasa sama. Macam tu lah.
Okey, untuk yang dah ada dalam slot hari ni, Cik Idris bagi tahu buku yang Cik Haikal baca tu ada dekat PTDI.
Alhamdulillah.
Kita boleh bacalah, tak apa. English baca lama-lama macam dia dah syok, dia akan faham lah. Mula-mula memang tak pernah faham kalau untuk yang tak lancar English, tapi rasanya boleh faham kot bila kita
bahasa dia, saya rasa bahasa dia simple sebab budak teenager. Bahasa dia simple.
Kan, nampak budak 13 tahun kan macam tu dah boleh tulis. Dan tulisan dia cantik pula tu, tadi saya tengok lawa tulisan dia.
Lawa. Saya terkejut juga bila saya baca, tak sangka budak 13 tahun boleh buat luahan perasaan macam ni, tapi mungkin sebab zaman berbeza. Macam tadi lah Kak Abdul cakap, kita kena membudayakan menulis, membaca, macam itulah.
Yelah. Okey. Dr. Tahira, Cik Aikal ada apa lagi yang nak di-sharekan? Sebab kita ada lagi 5 minit dan nak sampai pukul 3. Rasa geng-geng dah nak ready-ready. Nak pecut laju-laju nak masak buka hari ni. Kalau boleh
Itulah.
kita ingatkan
Satu pesanan je lah, especially kepada semualah, kepada semua kita yang dah dewasa ni, generasi baru ni, kita kena terapkan diorang lah pasal konsep apa ni, the devil next door. Betul tak? Betul. Ada Netflix mungkin
memang ada
kalau
definisi
mungkin
dia.
nak exposure, tak nak apa ni, nak faham cepat, tengok kat Netflix. Netflix kat YouTube ada banyak cerita dia. Cuma saya punya pesanan lah kepada kita semua yang dah apa ni, menjadi panduan kepada generasi baru. Kita kena bagi student kita faham lah, pelajar-pelajar kita faham realitinya kita ni hidup bermasyarakat macam tu. Jadi apa ni, saya punya risau sini sebab pelajar-pelajar kita ni, dia orang sebab kita apa ni, kebanyakan membesar di sekolah rendah, lepas tu sekolah menengah, dia orang tak bergaul macam tu. Itu saya punya kerisauan lah. So kita kena mengingatkan pelajar kita kat Malaysia ni ada bangsa lain. So kita kena hidup bertoleransi lah macam tu.
Yelah, betul. Kita punya Malaysia ni masyarakat kita majmuk.
Betul.
Kena faham dengan budaya yang lain-lain.
Ambil lah masa kan, baca-baca sikit, tengok-tengok sikit, macam tu lah.
InsyaAllah. Okey, terima kasih Cik Muhammad Aikal atas perkongsian yang saya fikirkan sangat baik sebenarnya. Itu boleh jadi sejarah sebenarnya, bukan boleh jadi, itu ialah antara sejarah Nazi, sejarah peperangan dulu yang kita boleh tengok dekat Netflix kalau kita rasa baca tu leceh sangat. Selalunya daripada video tu memang senang faham, betul tak?
Betul.
Ya, selamat berbuka puasa untuk semua.
Terima kasih semua.
Dalam Ramadan semua. Kita sudahi perkongsian kita hari ini dengan surah Wal-As dan Tasbih Kifarah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Terima kasih semua. Assalamualaikum.
Terima kasih semua. Assalamualaikum. Hati-hati drive nanti.